Okay, this will be a first draft for a game that looks pretty interesting because it has unusual factors or movesets and stuff. So we got, first off, lead T-Tar. Very rare, not unheard of, but on paper, it is very threatening because if you think about it, it's strong versus pretty much everything except for like Nidoking. So on paper, very strong lead. It's like an anti-meta lead. And because of that, more often than not, what you'll see is Ancient Power or Dynamic Punch, or some sort of combination of just a bunch of weird moves, including even Thunderbolt, because T-Tar boasts really high attack. So there is really no telling what it's going to do. It's obviously going to attack here. Just, this is giving me almost ADV vibes. Cloyster with the lead position suggests a Raikou in the back, and that could also spell danger for Big Fat Mantis because stalls have a hard time with certain T-Tar builds, especially the mixed kind. It depends if he has some sort of bulky water type like Suicune or something in the back. If he has a Missy, it's going to be very difficult. If he has Umbreon, that could also work too. So goes for the spikes because sure, and there you go. There's the Thunderbolt. A reason to pick Thunderbolt instead of Rock Slide? Um, I mean, it has Rock Slide, but Thunderbolt probably just hits Skarmory and Starmie too. It's also just more accurate, so it's more accurate than Rock Slide. So it's nice. Cloyster has pretty low special defense. Zapdos comes in. Now, the move here for Big Fat Mantis, if I'm correct, would be to go to Raikou. Um, with T-Tar there in the lead like that, it's almost certain that Doomchild, I forget who this is, has a phaser in the back. A different phaser. So we got Raikou, okay. With that different phaser not being T-Tar, that means that it's not a particularly weak to electric team. Snorlax is going to come in. Why I like this more is because it's not so much the fact that Cloyster would come in again because whatever, but it's more just the fact that Snorlax is the king of putting pressure early and prompting information. So if we're going to see a curse here, which is very likely considering the very offensive nature of this team already, then Big Fat Mantis is going to have to react again. So probably Skarmory is the way to go here because you want to spread. You either want to spread Toxic or phase out the Snorlax. So we see Earthquake. Earthquake on the Snorlax isn't particularly much different than choosing to go for a double edge. Now, the reason why it might be nice on that turn to go for it as opposed to double edge, because double edge might be just slightly stronger, isn't so much the recoil, but it's the fact that there's always that like small chance that Big Fat Mantis might actually be running a Raikou Golem plus Heracross team in the back, and so if you can chip down Steelix or Golem in the back, then the Earthquake is nice. If you run into a Skarmory, it doesn't really make a difference for you whether you click Double Edge or Earthquake. It's not a game changer to miss that shot. So, but I don't know. Like you do reveal your cards kind of early that way. So Speaking of revealing, there is the Golem. So Skarmory going for the Whirlwind, I think, is a pretty good move. What this team so far is suggesting is that if I'm BFM, I might want to click Toxic here because it will put something on a timer. He does instead go to Cloyster as Doomchild, who I forget who this person is, goes to Zapdos. So a bit preemptive. I would have liked the Toxic just for control reasons, because if you put Zapdos on a timer, what you can do later is bring in your Snorlax, click Curse, and now all of a sudden the opponent has to react. Hang on a sec. Okay, so I confirmed that Doomchild is Aminita. Sorry, I forgot. Anyways, here this is just going to be a rinse and repeat of earlier. Right. And we still don't know quite yet what the build that BFM has. It's kind of interesting to lead with Cloyster. You get that early, you get that situation. But since we haven't seen a Cloyster from from Aminita, we don't really know what the whether there's a second electric type, something else. So we don't really know how BFM's team is playing, yet it already took a lot of damage. So clearly, Aminita's team, he's doing pretty well for himself right now, and he's not only racking up damage, but he got paralysis on the Raikou. He's given little wiggle room for BFM because Cloyster is kind of weak. So yes, it gets you that spike, but sometimes positioning is way better because the Cloyster kind of opens up a window of opportunity for the opponent to strike more often. And what we've been seeing so far in just 9 turns is a lot of progress being made, and BFM reacting. He isn't necessarily playing wrong, but it's really hurting him, and this is forcing him to have to pull something off early. There's a good opportunity for a rest, and of course, BFM misses that opportunity to bring his own lax in. He might do it here, or he might click Sleep Talk and attack. Unfortunate miss, although the odds of that landing weren't high to begin with. And the Skarmory can prompt some more information or go for that Toxic. It would have been nicer sooner, because now Zapdos can just come in. And Skarmory goes after, so it's obviously a Whirlwind. In Gen 2, Roar and Whirlwind come later. And this is one of the nicer things about not bringing in the Cloyster so early, is that it's going to come in eventually, right? I mean, if you're going to force the Skarmory to phase you in and out. But here comes a very interesting Pokemon. So, Meganium. That's really cool. I've seen it in the past. There are 2 or 3 builds. 2 are rather defensive. 1 we can exclude from the get-go, which is Light Screen. And the reason is that defensive set usually is it's supposed to serve as some sort of offensive backbone for some setup mon, such as, I don't know, Rhydon or whatever. I don't think this team has Rhydon. So what it could be is like a poison powder spreader or something, or if I'm not mistaken, I don't even remember if it has poison powder, but it doesn't have many status moves. It's kind of just there. The other option is that it could, of course, be so its main attack would be Razor Leaf, but it could also go the offensive route and have Double Edge, not Double Edge, Body Slam and Earthquake plus Swords Dance. And that's what makes this interesting, because the 2 grass starters, Venusaur and Meganium, have Swords Dance, which is a pretty quick and no drawback way of just setting up fast. And as you can see here, there are at least 3 Mons that don't like Meganium being around on Aminita's team, being T-Tar, Golem, and Cloyster. And Zapdos, if it's asleep, can struggle handling this, because one of its best moves are resisted. And of course, if it's hidden power water, that's even worse. So that really doesn't leave you with much. You gotta get creative to answer this Meganium. This Meganium is also fast, but the one disadvantage of it is that it's susceptible to status. And if this is a Swords Dance Mon, it's not immediately threatening right now. So the Cloyster could go for Toxic. Now, since it's slower, and as we said earlier, it has a low special defense, it risks getting one-hit KO'd. Until we know whether it's the Swords Dance set or like a Razor Leaf set or something, it risks getting crit one-hit KO because Razor Leaf has a high crit chance. So most likely, the course of action here is to go to Zapdos. And you can like hope for a Spadef, a good hit. He gets a rest, which is really bad. And there we have already two Swords Dances, boosting it up really high. But it's surprisingly not that strong. The Zapdos is not threatened to be killed here. It has at least one other turn to survive. And wow, see, that's really underwhelming. But Zapdos just barely makes it out. Deals a bit of chip damage. The other issue, there it is. And so Zapdos goes down. So this is looking good for big BFM. But now that we know that this is the case, the Cloyster here isn't threatened anymore because it has just phenomenal defense. It can Toxic it. So, good exchange for BFM. So there's progress being made for sure. The only unfortunate thing is that the Raikou is asleep because it was forced early to go to sleep. And the reason why that was a big deal is because the T-Tar would have been that much more threatening. I mean, you have the Meganium, but you don't want to rely on Meganium as a defensive mechanism. So I think that Toxic was a little bit... Oh no, that wasn't uncalled for. Never mind. That was that was necessary, in fact. So the Snorlax comes in from Aminita. BFM brings in the Skarm. And he can essentially just click Whirlwind here, deal a little bit of damage. Goes for Curse. Not a bad play, but not a necessary one. It's fine. Raikou. Raikou coming in on Gengar. Gengar is very scary here because Gengar... Well, actually not so much anymore, to be honest. But in other scenarios, the Gengar could boom on the Raikou. Aminita doesn't want to do this because he wants to keep the Raikou alive, possibly, to threaten it. Because it's with his T-Tar, Golem, and Snorlax that he's going to be able to bully BFM around. But if the Raikou isn't there isn't all that much that the T-Tar can switch in on. So he doesn't want that. And plus his Zapdos is dead anyway, so the Zapdos isn't really going to help. I mean, the Gengar isn't really going to help that much with booming. It's probably better off to just keep this alive. And sometimes the winning strategy is to keep Gengar alive as long as possible. Especially against Stall, because Gengar is very resourceful, not just as a rapid spin blocker, so maintaining your spikes, but also just to bully a lot of passive Pokemon. It's a great stall breaker. With that boom there, with the combination of T-Bolt and Ice Punch. So now the Snorlax comes in. It's possibly Rest Sleep Talk, right? But it's not super threatening. There's the Sleep Talk, so there we go. And Skarmory comes in. So Skarmory will come in on this Snorlax every single day of the week. It's more about what each player can do out of that near obligatory interaction. We're going to see a lot of loops into Snorlax and consequently reactions to Skarmory, because as long as Snorlax is in, BFM has a lot of room to just come in and kind of just get some lefties back and game plan. So Aminita probably doesn't want to bring in the Lax too often. And the Cloyster is also going to prove very helpful. So this is very much going to be a game of what can I do with my spikes and my positioning for Aminita? And BFM is gonna need an opportunity. He's gonna need to rack up damage, but unfortunately the Raikou is just fucking blind as a bat, missing all the time. And the Skarm comes in again. Now Golem can spin here, and we already saw that the Cloyster took some damage. So Golem spins. No, never mind. Golem doesn't spin. Golem was trying to sneak in a KO. BFM probably makes the correct play and goes to Meganium. Of course, he does forfeit the spikes, and that's rather unfortunate because that would probably suggest that he doesn't have a... This is a very strange squad. Meganium is a very demanding mon that needs a lot of things to go its way. And we haven't seen a spin blocker. We haven't seen a Misdreavus. We haven't seen a pursuit user. It did not come in on the Gengar or even attempt to. So with the Cloyster very much weakened from that first exchange on turn 1, BFM's going to have a very hard time bringing it in and laying the spikes again. He could do it. He could have brought it back in here. He didn't do that. And maybe he should have. Because what is this Meganium going to do? So out of this interaction, okay, so he gets some damage and now he's poisoned. Of course, with a team like this, there's like a chance that maybe there's some sort of heal bell support. I mean, it is stall after all. So there could be some sort of heal bell. Earthquake. So if he's staying in, I guess he doesn't care, but you know, Aminita doesn't want to necessarily boom here, so he's kind of just chipping it. You know, that 13% is going to rack on with the toxic damage, and he knows that the Cloyster can take it. Now it's paralyzed though, so that kind of sucks. And it fully paras too. As you saw, Meganium doesn't deal that much. Body Slam is a not strong attack, and for someone without the stab, it's even worse. And then, you know, it doesn't even have the attack stat that Snorlax has to begin with. So there's a double, and ooh, that was pretty clean. Okay, that was nice. So perhaps in panic to get some leeway back, BFM doubled from Skarmory to Meganium. To Cloyster. But the Cloyster doesn't care about Skarmory. Like, Cloyster actually wins the 1v1, so he goes for Surf. And in the process, as BFM switched to his own, like we said earlier, Cloyster has low special defense and takes a lot from itself. The crit may have mattered, but the Golem was rather healthy to begin with. So it was looking like that Cloyster was bound to die eventually. And now we're in a situation where Aminita can kind of go to his Snorlax indefinitely. His Golem too, why not? But he can go to his Snorlax anytime the Raikou is looking rather scary. So that's good. He just needs to find an opportunity for the T-Tar, like so. And we see Whirlwind, Curse, Drill Peck. So that T-Tar there isn't worried about the Skarmory because there's no toxic. And that kind of sucks because the only other possible toxic user might have been the Cloyster. Then again, it might have been a Rest. But yeah, there's not much that can slow Aminita down. Sorry if I got caught up there. I probably should have paused a few turns ago. So the Miltank comes in. My bad for getting caught up there. But Miltank, yeah, sure, Miltank is like it's supposed to be the flamethrower Snorlax check. Not ideal for a T-Tar check, but I guess it can work, right? You have to make do. Honestly, this kind of sucks for BFM because the Meganium would have been nicer as an answer because it takes all the hits rather well. It has synthesis, and in the meantime, it can set up. But since he let it get toxic, the situation kind of sucks. So Miltank can growl, but it can also heal Bell. So, lest we forget, I'm stupid. Miltank can use Heal Bell and heal the Meganium. So if he heals it, then he can bring it back. What's the issue here is that, well, we already see a special attack, but T-Tar could land a dynamic punch, and that can be a problem. Also, Gengar bullies Miltank because Miltank cannot hurt Gengar at all because it has Body Slam. And yeah, so at the very least, BFM does replenish the status of all of its mons that went to sleep or got toxic. Snorlax comes in, and we're going to pause it here. Okay, so I'll have to continue at a different stage because I gotta go. Okay, we're back. Let's analyze the state of the game real quick. Now, as you can see, this Snorlax is doing a pretty good job at checking the Raikou. So much so that Aminita does not have to do a lot of pivoting. Now, what could be a problem for Aminita would be BFM's Snorlax, which is obviously the last Pokemon in the back. We don't know for certain what set it is, but, with reasonable doubt, the Snorlax in the back should be a Curse Earthquake Snorlax and nothing else, because it pairs very well with Raikou, and you have not one but two electric resists on BFM's team and Heal Bell support, so you can even let the Snorlax doze off, and with that support there's always ample opportunity to just make your Snorlax wake up early. I don't see what else it could be, honestly. And the fact that we haven't seen it thus far, in my opinion, is an issue and is part of the reason why BFM is struggling right now. Because what he wants to do to make something happen and help his Meganium out a little bit is get an alternate wall breaker. And what better breaker than the best mon in the game? I'm not saying that I'm not trying to discredit him. I'm just saying that sometimes we become a little bit too jealous of our goods, and I think that this, after taking a break for 3 hours and going around about my day, I thought about it some more, and I thought, well, this Meganium is having a hard time. And yes, it can help break for Lax, but Lax could also do the same. So I have reason to believe that the win con here is either take out the Snorlax of Aminita and try and win out with Raikou and Skarmory in some capacity, because Raikou Skarm is the GSC Skarm Bliss. It's really reliable. Or try and attempt to sweep with Lax and clean up with Meganium or something like that. I don't see grounds where they can otherwise win if he keeps letting things live. There's no path to victory through stalling the opponent out. Only stalling until you have the right opportunity. That's not the case for every stall team, but this team isn't equipped for long and drawn-out games, and we see how it wasn't really well equipped for high pressure from T-Tar. Aminita's goal is to break with the likes of T-Tar and Gengar and Snorlax. The Cloy and the Golem don't really have to do all that much. And none of the Pokemon are really going to invite Snorlax, and the fact that Zapdos died is actually playing into Aminita's favor because he's not letting the Snorlax in on the other side. That doesn't mean that BFM can't, but I just wanted to bring that out. Let it be known. So as you see, Earthquake doesn't deal that much. It's like a fifth of Miltank's health, but Miltank has Milk Drink, a signature move that heals half, but has a lot of PP to boot. So it's really, you're really just a sitting duck. Gengar, on the other hand, comes in every day and is free to spam Ice Punch here or do whatever it pleases. If it gets a freeze, that's going to be a big problem for BFM because Gengar is pretty strong and Miltank can't do anything to it. And as we saw earlier, that Meganium isn't really threatening until it gets to at least 2 boosts. Although, granted, the Cloyster is weakened. Skarmory is cursing up. I don't quite recall what move this Skarm has. I think it might have been Drill Peck. And, yeah, okay. So, and there's the Dynamic Punch. Oh, shit. Yeah, Dynamic Punch hurts a lot. It does just under half to Miltank, but if it stays in, it hits itself, it would take damage from Rock Slide and Faint. So he has to go to Meganium here. Meganium is a good answer. It's like a Bulky Water, but not quite. And Gengar is kind of interesting. Interesting interaction. The Gengar obviously doesn't like earthquakes. So who knows? Maybe the play there would have been to stay in, but then you kind of lose out on an opportunity to sweep. Who knows? I think it might have been a good idea to stay in. Now, the reason why is because Meganium is reasonably bulky and has access to Synthesis. Gengar comes in on the turn that it essentially comes back to full health. Or it does come back to full health. So Gengar, even if it attempts a freeze, you always have the option to force the Gengar out and eventually come back in with Miltank and heal the freeze. So that's okay. It's not as bad. Like, you could lose Meganium here, but if you take out Gengar, that aids you a lot with your Miltank. And I think Gengar's biggest weakness is that it's so valuable in long-term games, and so it doesn't want to scrap with things that are going to deal more damage to it. Or maybe Meganium is just that weak. I don't have the calcs, but maybe it's a... I doubt it's not... It doesn't 2-hit KO. Also, Venusaur doesn't learn Earthquake, so that's why it's Meganium. Anyways, interesting exchange there. So possibly BFM was thinking, okay, Gengar is going to explode here. What I'm beginning to see is a pattern of BFM not reading certain situations, and you can feasibly sleep talk, but the only reason you would switch out here is because you're afraid of a boom, or you're eager to heal off the lost health on Miltank. But why? Maybe there's just not another opportunity. Maybe he was hopeful of forcing out the Gar, but he didn't exactly prompt him with any damage to do so. And yeah, admittedly, it is a bit strange to go for a T-Bolt on that turn, but he does it anyways. Possibly because he... Maybe Aminita read the room better. But now, in comes Snorlax, and there's a Golem. And the Golem at this point is in a position where it can phase, it can boom. Of course, if it booms and it hits the sleeping Skarmory, that's not bad. It's not ideal. So yeah, it's not the best, but it's more a matter of, am I going to boom on the lax, or how am I going to react to the obvious threat of a boom on the lax, or how will I predict around that? And I guess the answer is I won't predict. I'm just going to click earthquake, and that's fine because it doesn't. It's there's no risk there. And he clicks roar, and now he phases in the Raikou, so that's good for him because Aminita can now leverage his position a little more, as he was losing a little bit of ground from that lax. And you start to wonder, BFM is playing a little bit reactionary, but he's already behind, so he should start playing as if he has nothing to lose. As you can see from the Raikou to the Skarm switch, as opposed to, say, the Meganium or the choice to click Curse. Like I said, Snorlax, if you're running Sleep Talk, Earthquake, Lax plus Raikou, what are you doing? You already have Heal Bell support, so you should have Curse EQ. It's very rare in today's meta to use Curse EQ, but when you have the squad that supports it, you should use it to the fullest of your advantage. And there's an interesting double. How many turns of sleep does Raikou have left? A whole 2 turns, so this is very scary. Because Gengar... It's scary for both of them because the Gengar, in choosing to stay in, may take more damage than it would like. For instance, the Raikou can roll a Thunder, survive an Ice Punch, and then hit, and then rest up. And so you kind of jeopardize the Gengar. But at the same time, there's that very yummy chance of just hurting the Raikou. And if you take a Thunder, the chances of Thunder actually landing, all things considered, with the Sleep Talk, is like 21%. So, those are good odds. And there you go, see? Commentary curse. Now there's a very realistic chance, and BFM is kind of forced to click Sleep Talk here. He doesn't have another opportunity to bring the Raikou back in, unless he's willing to sack yet another Pokemon, which is ill-advised. So he has to click Sleep Talk here, and he misses again. And you see, this is where the situation becomes really dire, as there are 3 Boom Offense Pokemon, and only 3 Pokemon left, one of which is Gengar, and there is a Dynamic Punch, Thunder, Rock Slide, Tyranitar, which might even have Screech, who knows. So this is looking, pretty bad. The Skarm is going to attempt to burn some turns, possibly. Unfortunately, without a way to put this team on a timer and no spikes whatsoever, Skarm is kind of just sitting there. So yes, it can curse up. Aminita knows this, and if Skarm curses up too much, he'll just go to T-Tar, as it resists flying, I'm pretty sure. And, I mean, how many times do you see a rock type take flying damage? So there's the Dynamic Punch, and it deals just under half to Snorlax. And now the Snorlax is in big trouble because it has to rest. And it's kind of too little too late, It has to rest at some point. If you switch out, you're basically switching it back in with only half health, meaning it's potentially in 2-hit KO range of anything. And if you rest then, they'll definitely boom. So you have to rest now. And if you go, you got to do it through confusion and the potential rock slide flinch chance. He decides to go to Meganium. Okay, fair enough. I'm not a clairvoyant. It's not like everything I say has to be 100%. It was logical. It didn't have to be true, but there's like I said, Hmm. Was this the one to switch to since there's the chance of the full para? Maybe it was. Because the Surf is almost guaranteed a 3-hit KO on Skarm. I would Surf twice and boom. Okay. If the Skarm goes down, then the Lax from Aminita becomes even more threatening, and of course the other two booms are just no-brainers at that point. So, mind you, the Meganium can't Oko the Golem, so that there's at least one boom guaranteed. Okay, Drum. Okay, Drum. Yeah, I didn't consider Drum. Drum makes sense. Not really a big deal. It's kind of too little too late. Nice switch. That was a good switch. Okay. Unfortunately, he loses the Snorlax, and now it's getting kind of tricky because you don't know if this is rest. Oh no, never mind, you do. Okay. Belly Drum Earthquake. Well then, yeah, no, there isn't really much to risk here. You just attempt to boom here. Or if you're crazy, you go to Gengar. What was that about? That was cool, but why? Oh, okay. Ah, I see. If there's one Pokemon I want gone right now, it's Gengar. So I might. I'm. My mind is getting a bit foggy. Now, where were we? I have no clue. Let's see. Ah, yes. I was talking about how the Snorlax. At this point, I'm not really certain as to what is the best course of action, but I feel like as you prolong your actions, things just get worse. There's the D punch, and I think the game ends here, folks. Because, I mean, Meganium can pull it off, but why go to the one thing that can give BFM the win con he needs? Is the question. What if you full para? Just boom! What are you... This is unjustifiable spaghetti. I mean, the earthquake makes sense. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, BFM forfeits. Sorry, folks, if I didn't mention which teams these were, but I don't quite remember. I'll just write it on the screen after the fact. Anyways, take care. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I decided to go a little bit more in depth about this, at least as far as the win conditions are concerned. Belly Drum Snorlax is interesting. That also fits onto Stall, and it's pretty good, but I believe that it should have been used earlier, and there might have been somewhat of a chance to kind of leverage the offense a little bit more. The way this Stall team was being played was leaning towards this reactive passive side, which I think is more or less where Meganium falls apart. But respect, because it did manage to take out 2 top 3 months. So, 2 for 1 is pretty good. All right. That's been one game of the Week 8 GSCPL, but, at this point, the finals are in the works, and I'm a week behind. I know. I hope that's not too much of a too much to ask if I ask you guys for patience. I know Christmas is around the corner too. I haven't gotten a lot of gifts yet.